Larry, how are you this morning?
Great.
A couple days removed from the Colorado game, just with a young team, what are some of the teachable moments that you might have seen on film for them?
Oh man, the list is pretty lengthy. That was a perfect storm in terms of making a lot of mistakes, offensively, defensively, transition, rebound. Got deboed in the post, made bad plays. I mean, it's certainly. I had so many. I think I had 90 clips in the airport, and then we trimmed it down to about 30 for the team. So I think we want to get out on the practice court, put a little bit of the bad taste out of our mouth. I know we can be better. We've got to be far better defensively in a lot of categories, and our team is not ultra talented to where we can ever get by without playing really hard and with an edge. And I think that was a humbling game for us, and that's the great thing about league play is we get a chance to go out and try to improve.
You talked about how a loss is a loss and 1 point or 40 points. I just wanted to know you talked earlier this year about the NET rankings and how margin of victory is important, and just maybe in consideration of that, obviously you'd rather be close than lose by 40.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying that if we're down by 3, it's okay to lose by 40. I'm just saying that's when the result was in. We weren't going to change the fact that we lost by as many points as we lost, and I know that hurts you in the net. The film session we watch film whether we win or lose in any kind of game. There's just a lot more mistakes from the other day, and a lot of those clips we watched when we were down 20, and it doesn't make any difference to me. I think you're building really bad habits if you don't try to stay sharp and win the next possession. And I thought that we were really poor in that category. We kind of gave in. We didn't have a whole lot of fight to us. Got a lot of guys involved in the game as far as the minutes went, but it's not acceptable to lose by 40. But that comment came more from which is more humbling and which makes you take a really good look at yourself. I think when you're as bad in a 40-point loss as we were, then that kicks you to the curb pretty quick. And a loss smarts all the time, but I think it forces us to all take a good look at what we're doing and bring into the table, and it's much more of an eye-opener to me to have a beatdown like we had.
Arizona's coming off of getting swept by the Oregon schools. They don't have a Quadrant 1 win, but they're obviously talented with the freshmen. Are they better to you than what they've shown lately?
Oh, for sure. I mean, if you look at the games, St. John's was playing really well. That was a neutral court loss. Gonzaga, last time I checked, they're steamrolling some people. And then those Oregon schools, in our conference, it's the first time that they've lost the Oregon swing, but I think that's a credit more to the Oregon schools than it is, a detraction at all from Arizona. They're as talented as they've ever been. They get up and down the floor. They guard really hard. They've got a lot of great pieces. So, that's an unusual thing for Arizona to lose those games, but they're super potent, and a lot of the same things that we faced with Colorado, maybe with the exception of the experience. I think there's real similarities between the two teams and the challenge inside, the challenge at Nico Mannion, and Green's playing well. They've got a lot of the shooters around the perimeter. The only thing is those kids haven't played in 100 Pac-12 games like maybe Colorado has. So, that's it's going to be a challenge, certainly, regardless of what Arizona has done previously. When you step into their gym in that environment, it's difficult, and it'll be a great challenge for us. We have experienced that before, in some of the games that we've played. So hopefully we can chalk it up to experience and be better this time out.
Your center position's been a bit of a problem this year, struggle. I mean, getting production. I just wondered if, when you switched starters last game, also you brought in, Mark, to play center. And then also earlier in the year, you talked about Matt Van Komen was playing very well for you early on. And I just wonder if he's been a consideration maybe to plug in at that position too.
Well, sure. I mean, I think the one area that was problematic in it, Mark certainly was a guy that brought a level of physicality. I mean, he had 4 rebounds in the first half, which I think totaled the other 5s that we had thrown out there. He set the best screen that we've had in the season, doing some things, some little things. But these kids are all growing. We visited with all of them yesterday individually, and I think, just as a reminder, it's really difficult to be a freshman. A lot harder than people understand, and the change, the demands, physicality, mental-wise, school-wise, maybe expectations, different things like that. So those guys are taking it personally, and they know, and they've been challenged, and we need a physical presence. We certainly don't need them to go out and get a double-double, but they've got to keep their guy from getting 10 rebounds. I mean, a little bit of it's maybe back in the days when we played against Dennis Rodman, it was negative rebounding. It was, okay, I'm not worried about getting this one, but I got to make sure he doesn't get it. And we've got to get a little bit more obstinate. We've got to play lower. As we discussed, these guys aren't getting stronger anytime soon. I trust Rock will do a good job in the weight room, and their diets and things can put some meat on their bones. But if they don't have that weight, then we're going to need a different mindset. We're going to need to play the game lower, and I think that's where we get in trouble a lot of time. But that's an elite front court. Those guys, those big guys, again, they've been 100 games, I think, each of them, in Division I basketball, and we've got some kids that are just approaching 20. So there's a lot of things we can talk about. I think we're probably at the point of the season where talk is cheap, and we need some guys to step up. And we've got a plan as coaches to have an order and go about it, and we've got to improve. There's a lot of areas that need to be improved, and that's one that's pretty obvious, and they know it, and I think they're taking it personally.
Now, what about Matt? Is he possibly?
Well, that game didn't set up. Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm not going to get into what we're doing for sure. I can tell you that he's working his butt off as much as he's ever worked. He's committed to it, and I thought from a physicality point of view, and who knows, nobody else really dazzled against Colorado. Maybe the 7-4 aspect would have had an impact, but at some point we're going to have to pick two guys, maybe a third guy in certain games, but you can't try to play 4 centers.
Just with Timmy, he's an Arizona kid. He has the opportunity to go home now and play twice. Is that something that he embraces, something that he looks forward to, the opportunity to go home and play twice in his home state?
Well, I'm not going to answer Timmy's question necessarily, but I think, it happens a lot with our team. I think you recruit Southern California and you get some LA kids, and it's always an opportunity for them to get home closer to some family and friends. But at the end of the day, I think they're all super mature, kids, and you don't want to get ahead of yourself. It's nothing different. We've got to get out, I think, and keep the focus a little more simplified, in terms of what it is. We got to play with an edge. We got to do those types of things and play really hard. And, I think in those opportunities, you're reminded before the game with friends and family. But I'd like to think once we cross the lines and we get ready to compete, that goes out the window, and then I'm here in Arizona and I'll play. So we need that kind of focus, I think, throughout. But it's certainly an opportunity for guys to get closer to home and maybe be a little bit more comfortable.
You mentioned recruiting SoCal. Timmy was a Compton Magic kid. Cedric was another one. He came to you as a transfer. Justin Bibbins, another Compton Magic kid, as a transfer. From a recruiting aspect, is it fair to say that your relationship has been fruitful with that AAU program, and you've had some success?
Oh, sure. I mean, we've got a lot of respect for what those guys do. I think there's a lot of really solid guys involved, and they've got the best interest of the kids in mind. And we've had a good stroke with those guys, and that's all part of life is all about relationships. And I think it's worked out pretty well in the instances of those guys, and everybody's different. Each one's different, and nobody's delivered or sealed and any assumptions made. But I think they do a really good job of helping the young men in their program find programs that fit them based on their personalities and what it is they're looking for. And so that's certainly something that's important to us, is that relationship, not only with those kids and their families, but with everybody in their programs.
Follow that up. Tope was here a couple weeks ago, I think, for the Oregon State game. He came to watch Timmy. Just how beneficial is it for the kids that the relationship with a guy like Tope doesn't end after high school and that he still tries to check up on them as time
Yeah,
goes on.
no, that's it. You're right, Josh. I mean, that's, as I said, it's relationships, and I think that personally, I think that's probably the highlight, one of the best parts about the sport of basketball for me. Besides having an opportunity to, as a player and a coach, to be involved in high level, high energy, intense situations. It's never monotonous, but probably more important than anything is just all of the relationships, the friendships that you make over the years with the, a wide variety of people. And you see them to this day. Maybe you haven't seen them in, 20 years, whatever the case might be, but there's always something about how you treat people, and how you go about your business. I think it's important to be respected, and I know Tope and everybody in their program, that's really important. And I think that's a common thread with our program, with their program, and with a lot of the kids they coach. It's bigger than basketball oftentimes.
Coach, you know that each game you're learning game by game about your team, about your guys. What is it right now at this point in the season that you have learned that you guys, your guys can learn, execute, and do right, that you've been applying from the beginning until now?
Yeah, I think things have reared their head at different times, and that's not unusual with the team. I do know that when we play really hard, we've got those banners up in our practice gym for a reason, to play hard and smart and together. I know when we can check 2 of those boxes, maybe even a half of another box, we're pretty good. We've got to play with an edge consistently. We've got to play together and rely on each other. And then we've got to try to be ready for a game plan. The mental, the book side of it is important. And we've had different thirds of those categories that don't show up. And you get the Coastal Carolinas, and you get the San Diego States, and you get the Colorados. And so I think more important for our guys is to understand the importance of those things, the simple concept of going out and playing really hard and thinking about teammates and paying attention to a scouting report. And there's usually a correlation with us having more success. So, and a bunch of individual pieces. There's times where you get dialed in on a couple week practice schedule of defensive transition, and you hope as you move on 6 weeks from now that stays a staple of your program. You got to have a bunch of those habits, and oftentimes with teams, those will rear their head again. So you've got to learn some lessons and bank them and make sure that you're bringing that. But I think rebounding and defensive transition are huge for us right now. We worked on it a lot, but we got smacked pretty good the other night, and the theme is going to be consistent with those 2 things when we play both of the Arizona schools coming up this weekend. Oh, dang it. Okay. All right.